Steph Curry, before a game, he's playing, allows him to get into the mindset to just kill his opponents on the court and take no prisoners.
Sports psychologist for the New England Patriots, Boston Red Sox. I want to really talk about the power of play. How do you bring it up inside yourself?
Not be so caught up in the outcome, but to be caught up in the process of this moment, this power play, this touch, this dribble allows you to be more present.
Oh, that's all interconnected. Handling pressure, burnout. This is process confidence. On all three levels, families, coaches, individuals can take advantage of it. Where should a team start with that to invoke that power of play to get all those different outcomes we talked about?
The trust builds a level of safety upon which play can occur. Informal and formal ways of getting people to know each other. What do players do when they get to the soccer field? Like even a bench or a tree or wherever, where they can come together.
Usually if a team isn't gelling well, it's a systems issue. And then once you have a system, something's not working, just change it. How can a parent foster that in their child?
So I know you and I are guilty of this, and a lot of parents are guilty of it too. If you start fantasizing about what that child will be, whom they will be, what they will become, and that can then bleed into how we treat them in real life.
Every little tiny moment is a big moment. So for parents, think about what values do you want your child to gain out of sports? What is your system as a parent to have those conversations? Is it dinner table? Is it a car ride before you get the door? Is it a text that you send to your child before they go off to practice?
A lot of parents act on their feelings and understand their commitments. You want to act on your commitments and understand your feelings.
Yeah, I need to have more sports therapists on this podcast. Welcome to the All Mental Podcast for athletes, where we do a deep dive into the mental strategies so that you can be able to gain a competitive edge in any sport that you play. I'm your host, Charles, and while I am a licensed therapist, it's only for informational and educational purposes only. This is not a substitute for your own individual therapy. If you do need a therapist, please do find one inside your area. Sports psychologist for the New England Patriots, behavior sports psychologist for the Boston Red Sox, and co-author of the book Mentality Wins, along with Dr. Kim O'Brien. Dr. Jenkins, welcome to the All Mental Podcast for athletes. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Just put my son to bed. We're ready to rock. Let's go.
Yeah, mine is to bed, and I don't hear footsteps because her room is above mine. So that means she's out like a light. And I know my little son's out like a light as well. This is going to be an amazing podcast for two reasons. One, this is the first time I've ever had a sports therapist on the podcast. It's going to be really amazing dynamic with two different sports therapists talking about mental strategies. Secondly, I want to really talk about the power of play, because that was the first chapter inside your book. And as I said, you are the first person I've ever had written notes for when coming into a podcast for a guest. Usually I'm like, I got off the top of my head, but I had to write notes because I'm seeing how the power of play is woven into everything. Failure, confidence, joy, handling pressure, burnout, grit. Every other chapter you wrote is interweaved from the power of play at its core. So I'm like, that's fascinating. And how that intersects with families and with the individual athlete and with teams, and how they can be able to help to build those structures and those strategies inside the athletes themselves. So it's going to be a fascinating episode. And I just want to start off with jumping right into it. Why the power of play?
Play is often forgotten in youth sports, and it sounds ridiculous because you play sports. But for a lot of people right now, it's all about development and getting to that next stage, as opposed to enjoying where you are right now. The opportunity to play with your teammates, with your coaches, in front of your family is something that's not going to happen forever. You might go off to college, you might play professionally, you might get injured. So really taking the time to enjoy play now. And when Kim and I thought about our athletic careers when we were writing the book, our young sports days were filled with a lot of play. But then there was this dark period, the dark ages, where we took it so seriously. And that caused a lot of emotional stress. And now that we're in our 40s, we're trying to reintroduce play into what we do as recreational athletes. And we found that we've rejuvenated our love for our sport. And we've also experienced a lot more improved mental health while playing our sports as well.
How would you feel like that has impacted your outcome, in what way when it comes to the mental health of you as an, right now, recreational athlete, but then also as you work with athletes that are playing on the professional level and also teams as well?
So I think play does a lot of different things. One, it helps you learn, right? So when we were learning how to spell, how to write, any of those things in school, great teachers would involve play to help us learn. We might do a bingo card. We might do our times table with speed and give out silly prizes. That was a way for us to not concentrate on the stress of the activity, but concentrate on the joy of learning and competing with our teammates. That's the joy. Play does that. Play also allows you to get to know your teammates in a different way. It lowers the stress of practice and allows fun to come into play. And when you play, you have to be innovative. You have to problem solve. You have to figure things out in a way that's not prescriptive, like your coach saying, okay, this happens and then this happens. So it allows for some of that innovation to occur. Now, for us as adults, play allows me to not take myself so seriously. It allows me to acknowledge that at 42, my body's different than it was at 22, but I can still get engaged in and have fun hanging out with my friends, moving my body, and trying to do difficult things and allowing that to be an opportunity for me to grow.
And then getting into the nitty gritty of the power of play, how exactly do you bring that up? Like, what strategies do you like? How do you bring it up inside yourself? Is it a self talk thing? Is it you write it down? Does it become a value? How do you draw that out?
Well, for me, I kind of think of what's the sport, right? So when I was training for the Boston Marathon, I knew I had to do these long runs, and long runs can be incredibly boring because you're out there on the road by yourself for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours at most, or at least in certain situations. So figuring out what the activity is and then gamifying it, finding ways that you can make it slightly different so that you can still accomplish the task, a certain pace, a certain distance, but you're doing it in a way where your mind isn't focusing on what you're doing. Your mind is slightly or significantly distracted by something that's more attractive. And that more attractive thought or thing can give you a little bit more perseverance and keep anxiety at bay so that you're able to be more presently minded and presently focused. So for a couple of my training runs, I put on an audiobook, a fun or silly audiobook. I might listen to comedians. They had a zombie run. So you pretended you were running from zombies. So that was a way where I could not just sit there and do the standard thing and be kind of square with it. It allowed me to be innovative and take my mind off the task, but still be connected to it so that I was able to, again, to thwart off some of those challenging emotions and be there in the moment.
And then how do you feel like that impacts the actual performance, the actual outcome? So you mentioned if you don't have, I can see it, like if you gamify a situation, especially in practice, then you're able to have more perseverance because you're not focused. Because a lot of times what interferes with perseverance is those feelings of dread and the negative self talk and what if I fail, especially when you're on an 8, 12, 13, 14 mile run. It gets tough, right? You hit that wall. And so it's like, oh, what if I fail? Let me draw back a little bit, and that ends up causing failures. But how does having the power of play and gamifying actually improve the overall sport performance, would you say?
Well, so I would say there's a difference between repetition and monotony. So you can
Mm,
have repetition that's gamified. You can do something various different ways, but monotony can often be the devil of practice. It can cause people to check out. It can cause people to not give their full effort. So if there's a way to make practice different every time or to do something in practice occasionally to bring people back in, that can be great. So
mm,
Kim, the co-author, spoke about the showcase challenge that she did on the Harvard hockey team, where every once in a while the coach would say, showcase showdown, and they would separate into the lower class students and the higher class students, so seniors, juniors, and freshmen, sophomore, and they would compete against each other. So that was a way to bring competition into practice, but also to kind of reset the focus, clean the palette, if you will, from a practice that
mm,
might be slogging along, a practice that might not be going well, and bring a little bit more energy and enthusiasm into it. And when you incorporate play, it makes you have to shift your focus from the way that you were traditionally focusing and attuning to what you were doing to now having to do something novel and different. And that shift in
mm.
focus might unlock you being able to see or feel something that's going to help you when you're doing that activity in a game or in a practice that's not under the guise of just playing and playing in practice.
How do you feel like that impacts from or transitions from practice to in game? And so from practice, if you're gamifying practice, gamifying different drills and getting your teammates involved, which is a whole host of great things which we haven't even delved into yet when it comes to building team confidence and camaraderie, which we'll get there for sure because one of my little notes. When it comes to game time, how does the power of play help an athlete in that realm?
So I don't know about you, but I don't want to play a team that looks like they're having fun. I don't want to play a team that looks like this is a game to them, that they're at play
Right.
while we're playing lacrosse, and that they're laughing, they're joking, they're being playful in their competitive nature. And that doesn't mean that they're being lackadaisical, but it means that they're playing with a sense of enthusiasm, a sense of joy, a sense of togetherness. And so in those moments of play in practice, you are really building that when it comes to team cohesion, and it shows up in the game. There's a sense of being stronger than and more connected than your opponent. And then as for individual athletes, that playfulness or that joy will also show up. And if you're on the tennis court and you see your opponent smirking, laughing, getting excited, kind of showing that nonverbal body language that they're excited, that can come out from play spontaneously, that's going to do something to you. That might start making you second guess yourself. That may start making you feel like your opponent's here and you're here. So anything that you can do to get even a slight advantage in the perception that your opponent has of you and your abilities and your suffering during competition is huge. One of the things that I would try to do when I was playing lacrosse was anytime that I felt tired, I would try to smile, because then the opponent would see me smiling. And for them, if I could trick them for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute or two until I'm able to get on the bench and recover, maybe then that would be some type of psychological injury or insult that I could give them that made them start to question, well, he's not tired, but I'm winded. And so that disimbalance of the situation allows me to get a slight advantage that I can take advantage of later.
You're into the dark side now.
Yeah.
Psychological
using sports
tactics.
Psychology for evil. Yes, sometimes.
Hey, you see a couple books back here.
Yeah.
So I think that's, and I think because when people hear the power of play, it's like, oh, play with sports psychology, how does that really connect? And I think if people really understood it, that's why I wrote things down. I was like, oh yeah, Jenkins is smart. He had a whole different angle.
Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry before a game, he's playing. Like that allows him to get into the mindset to just kill his opponents on the court and take no prisoners. LeBron James, they're shooting around, they're laughing. Not everything in life has to be serious. The more you make it serious, the more you are draining and expending adrenaline, cortisol, all these different stress hormones in your body. So the further or the later you can allow that to flood your system and start in a non-stressful place, the better you're going to be towards the end of the game, because you haven't been sitting in a stress response for 60 minutes. Maybe you've been sitting in it for 45. And that extra 15 minutes of not being stressed out is going to pay dividends towards the end of the game.
It'd be fascinating to see, like you mentioned, if someone's sitting in there for 15 minutes compared to 45 minutes, because just from the physical aspect of it, if an athlete is tense all game long, you're breathing heavy all game long, you are wearing yourself down, especially when we start talking about the elongation of things. Maybe for the first 10, 15 minutes doesn't make a difference, but by the end of the game, you've been in that stress response physically the entire game, compared to an athlete who is taking longer, deeper breaths, is more relaxed, going to have more energy. But I think on the mental side of it, it's even more important. And when you start talking about handling pressure and the ability to be able to handle pressure, the equation for handling pressure, the first thing is to embrace that pressure. If you practice in a stress environment mentally and you bring that into game and you're stressed, you can have a very difficult time handling pressure. When the crowd gets loud, when you're behind, when there's a couple of seconds left on the clock and you're tense and you see that pressure as a threat rather than a challenge or rather than a benefit, that's when you're going to actually make those physical, concrete mistakes. That when you come at it from an embrace standpoint, when you're tired, when you find out, oh, my opponent's really good. Oh, that's fascinating. This is going to be fun now. Like I'm up for this challenge now, and they're smiling. That means you're embracing that pressure, which allows you to be able to handle that pressure. And then also when it comes to just confidence as well and failure, when someone has that joy and sees things as a power of play, one of my notes I took down was confidence usually into 4 realms. It's usually outcome confidence, performance confidence, and what gives someone confidence. Outcome, whether they can win. Performance, how they're actually performing. Physical, having trust inside their training. And then there's one that isn't the research, but I kind of made it up. It's process confidence. Having confidence in the process itself. And the connection I made when you started talking about the power in play, and as I'm reading through your whole book, it's, this is process confidence.
Mm.
The joy in seeing things as a game and seeing things as a fun challenge. Oh, that I love that process. Like this is a process. This whole hour game, 2 hour game, if it's tennis, a 4 or 5 hour match, this is all part of the process. If I lose a point, that's fun. It's part of the process. If I get a point, that's fun. It's part of the process. If I lose a rep, win a rep, doesn't matter. Everything is joy and everything is process. So I think when athletes, if they can unlock that power of play through mentally, through just how they set their value systems, through practice, you bring that into game, it allows you to be able to handle pressure better, allows you to be able to handle failure, it allows you to be able to have a stronger, more concrete set of confidence throughout the entire game, which then all those things impact the actual sport performance of that athlete, just on an individual level. And so when you start talking about team level, that's when you start building team confidence, where it's like, hey, we all enjoy this thing. If you make a mistake, it's all good, baby. It's part of the process. We in it together, make mistakes all the time. Instead of it being you made a mistake, all right, I can't trust you now. Then what happens on the next play? If it's football, you drop back pass, it's like, oh, you made this mistake. Should I throw it to you? That little half split second, that means that's an incompletion or interception. If it's field hockey, you don't have the lane. If it's basketball, I don't make the pass when I should. But when you have a team that has the camaraderie because you're involved in a part of play, and as you know, all adults are just really big children. We're not
Yeah.
that different.
Yeah.
When we all have the power of play and we all can trust each other that when we fail, it's all good. I got your back. You have my back. And it's part of the process. And I still trust you. So the next rep, even though you failed before, I'm still going to hit it to you again. I'm going to have confidence that you're going to be able to do it because that's how we train and that's how we play. And then I don't hesitate. And I don't hesitate mentally. I don't hesitate physically. It is the best outcome of making that play successful. So that's why I was like, oh, power of play. I was like, oh, that's all interconnected. Yeah, that's so fascinating. I was like, okay, cool. It's a whole different angle. It's a whole different angle. So, yeah, let me know what your thoughts are about that. That's how I analyze everything. Let me know if I missed the mark. If like, oh, Charles, you missed this piece too. But,
No,
let me know first before I ask more.
No, I love the way that you're coming at it. What came to mind for me when you were talking was this idea that sports will always have pressure, but are you doing things to reduce the amount of pressure you feel? Or are you doing things to increase the amount of pressure that you feel? Sports will always have stress. Are you doing things to make sports less stressful for you and your team? Are you doing things to introduce more stress into the situation? So when we think about that process confidence, and I love that idea, whenever we're just kicking it and playing games, yeah, we're invested in the wins or the loss, but we get over it so quickly. And so when you're thinking about a drive in football, a power play in hockey, man down or woman down in lacrosse, yeah, there are stakes on the line, but whether you win or you lose, you shift to the next opportunity to have another moment on the field, the court, or the ice. And that ability to shift and not be so caught up in the outcome, but to be caught up in the process of this moment, this power play, this touch, this dribble allows you to be more present, which introduces gratitude into the equation because you can't have gratitude if you're not present. And it also allows your body and your mind to work in concert to have the most likely chance of having the positive outcome. Can't guarantee that you're going to make the right play, but you can certainly raise or reduce the likelihood that you're going to have a positive play. And incorporating play into your practice constantly and into your team dynamics is going to increase that.
Yeah, I need to have more sports therapists on this podcast.
Yeah, no, it's fun.
It's fun because, talking about focus, that's one of the 4 pillars of your book. And focus is simply being in the present moment. And I alluded to RAM. If anyone knows what RAM means for computers, it's how many tabs can you have open at one time before your computer starts to stall out and slow up. If you're focused on the future, about what's going to happen next, if you're focused on the past, about what happened previously, which also correlates to performance confidence that gets wrapped into your head, how am I performing? Then your brain can't allocate the resources to focus on what's happening in the present moment. It can't do the mathematical equations of this pitch is coming at me this way. Okay, based on how it's coming in its angle, in its speed, hey, body, you got to be able to react in this sense. If your mind is distracted, even for a split millisecond, and baseball is the worst because if you're 30, 40%, you're in the Hall of Fame. So if you're distracted, then you're going to miss. And like you mentioned, you're not going to make every single play, but it's the best chance you have. So talking with clients, really what it's about is, what are the concrete structures that you can build mentally in these one-on-one sessions as an individual, so that you, when you practice, oh, this is literally the best chance I have. So for an athlete, as we're talking here, if you're listening to it, it's try to find out how you can be able to invoke the power of play, and then take data. You can write it out if you want. You can take just mental notes as, oh, when I came out with joy, and I was more relaxed, how did I actually feel anecdotally? Oh, I felt pretty good. I actually felt pretty relaxed. Then how did that translate to my play? I was able to focus more. I was actually able to hit the ball more often. I was able to have better contact. I was able to catch the ball more. Oh, wow. That actually really did impact my play concretely. And once you figure that out in practice and in game, it's like, it doesn't matter if I'm angry. It doesn't matter if I'm upset. And you talked about self-discipline. I want to hear what your definition of self-discipline is. It doesn't matter what your emotions are. Regardless of your emotions, all I know is when I smile, all I know is when I trust my teammates, all I know is when I look at the ball, because if that's my focal point, that's when I actually play the best. So regardless of everything else, joy allows me to be able to play the best. I know that works. It's going to be the best chance to be able to make the best play. I think that's when athletes grasp that, it's like that's your fallback. That's your foundation. If your house isn't built right, it's gonna crumble. That's your foundation. So that's really, really cool. I like how you did that. My question is, on a team side, how what systems have you found to be the best for teams to be able to implement to invoke that power of play to get all those different outcomes we talked about, of confidence and self-esteem and everything else?
Well, I think to have play, you need to have trust, right? You can't play in an unsafe
Mm,
environment if there's risk to your psychological safety or your physical safety. So, first, the trust builds a level of safety upon which play can occur. And so you got to
mm,
get to know your teammates. You got to get to know when a teammate's joking and it's playful trash talk and it's not personal. You got to know how physical you can be in play. You got to know how much you can celebrate, how much you can dunk on somebody, so to speak. You also got to know when you got to lift certain people up. So being able to
mm,
establish that level of communication verbally and non-verbally before you get into play or before you do anything, really, that's really going to accentuate what we're doing. But, as a sports therapist yourself, like this idea that first thing we want to do is take care of the wellness. Then my next step
mhm,
is thinking, I want you to be less of an error repeater. So whatever the struggle is that you're having, you can't hit the fastball, you can't hit the curve, you're a goalie and your save percentage is not where you want it to be. I want to help you stop with those errors. So if you make a mistake, you're more likely to make the successful choice the next time you have the opportunity. Once we're able to capitalize on those two bottom parts of the pyramid, then we can start to ascend towards whatever you consider to be the greatest form of yourself. Like Pokemon, right? They have that
mhm.
original form and then they got the super form. So if we can't
Yep.
be healthy and if we can't figure out what are the things getting in the way of us repeating those errors, either as an individual or as a team, right? Team needs to be healthy. Team also needs to figure out what's
Mm,
getting in the way of team cohesion, team performance. Once those two barriers are addressed, then we can start that ascension towards maybe having a championship season, making a deep run in the playoff, reversing the curse, whatever it might be. But if your mental
mhm.
health and your team dynamics and your communication and that psychological safety, shout out Amy Edmondson, Harvard, if you can't manage that, then you can't build anything comfortable or long lasting, and you can't reach your peak potential without it.
Where should a team start with that? Is it having just get to know you activities? Is it having group conversations? Is it having like circle based restorative type conversations? And restorative doesn't mean it's a harm circle. Restorative means just building community in general. So some people, I just want to make sure that clear. People are like, oh, restorative is harm. It doesn't necessarily mean harm. So where should a team start with that? Like on a systems structure, what specifically should they do to be able to help build that trust?
So it's interesting. There are things you can formally do and there are things you can
Hmm.
informally do. So if we're going to the showcase showdown that Kim talked about, getting those players to play with and against each other provided an opportunity for them to know each other in this playful way and for them to communicate and see each other as useful teammates, helpful teammates on the team. So, for instance, there could be some junior that was performing really well in the Showcase Showdown, but might not have gotten a lot of ice time during the games. But her performance in the Showcase Showdown gave her a sense of pride, a sense of being seen and acknowledged on the team, which then, motivated and gave energy to her practice habits so that in that game, she was able to perform well. It's not in the book, but Kim talked about how one athlete on the team, I think it's one of the things we edited out of the book, unfortunately, there's an athlete on her team in the championship year who didn't play a lot. And then during one of the key games in the season in the playoffs, she was called upon to play and she performed really well. If I remember correctly, she scored the game-winning goal. So that idea of nobody's ever out of their ability to perform and help the team. But I would say I went on a tangent to go back to your question, informal and formal ways of getting people to know each other. An informal way is how you set up the space. Okay, so if we're thinking about youth sports, what do players do when they get to the soccer field? Is it everybody's on their phone? Is it people are coming in mass and coming at different times? Or have you established an area, like even a bench or a tree or wherever, where they can come together? You tell them their phones are away when practice, 15 minutes before practice starts, and they have opportunities to get to know each other. On Fridays before the weekend, do you share good news? What are people's weekends planned? What are you going to do? Do you celebrate birthdays? Do you celebrate accomplishments outside the team? Hey, so-and-so just got a 5 on their AP test. Let's clap it up for them. Or so-and-so is going to the prom with so-and-so, and you playfully joke with them about that. Like those types of informal things then can be built upon by formal things. Hey, each one of us is going to take one of our teammates out to get lunch in the cafeteria, or I'm going to give you guys $20 so you guys can go get some pizza after practice. Those things where the coach is maybe removed and the athletes, young or old, have to kind of fend for themselves and problem solve social relationships by themselves can be really important. And the most important thing is when there is fracture has to be followed by repair. If there's fracture with no repair, that's going to fester on the team and cause issues outside of the people who it impacts, but all the bystanders who are now dealing with the stress of this issue being a central concern within the team dynamic.
I like what you said, because it's a systems issue. Usually if a team isn't gelling well, it's a systems issue. And I think if teams approach things from the system standpoint, meaning like it's the wheels of how it's built, it's less personal. So I don't think I have it behind me. It's a book called The Art of Negotiation, I think is what it's called. And really it's about solving problems as you see things as a system. It's not a person issue. The system is designed and works the way that it is intended. And if there's sometimes no system is a system. So it's looking at, okay, do we have opportunities, like you mentioned, a gathering place where everyone can gather before practice? Everyone needs to be here at this particular time, but I'm not starting practice until 15 minutes later on purpose so that everyone can be able to congregate. Do we have time within practice to be able to have conversations? Maybe I have an extended water break. Not really because they don't need a whole 10 minutes for water, but I want them to be able to have some time just to be able to converse with one another. At the end of practice, how do I set that up? How do I set up specific things for the team to be able to do for fun? Within my captain's room, how do I have those conversations of, hey guys, as team captains, as a coach, I can help invoke team confidence by making sure everyone has a mastery mindset and make sure everyone has a growth mindset. I can set up some systems in place for y'all to be able to converse. But really, the best way to build the team confidence based on the research is for you all to do it as captains, and it has to come from you. How can I help provide that for you all? What system are we going to design here? Are we going to have accountability buddies in the gym? Are we going to be able to have, what do we need to do here? And then once you have a system, something's not working, just change it. More water time, less water time, different location, take this thing out. You just change it, but the opportunities are there. And like you mentioned, when there is some harm done, when there is some disputes done, if you don't have any deposits in the bank to withdraw from, you're pulling in the red, you're pulling in the negative. If you have consistently had the team put deposits inside that bank, when issues do happen, the team members know, like, hey, I know on the core, I like you as a person. We have some type of dispute. we have enough deposit in our bank to be able to withdraw some to figure it out and then continue moving on in a positive way. And not moving on and like, I don't like them, but I guess we're on the same team together type of thing. But it's like, oh no, we have some beef, but that happens. It's a part of a team. What norms do you set as a team or values I like? What values do, and this, you talk about this towards the end of the book, what values does a team have? What values do the players have? Are they living up to their values? And that should be a systems piece. Is like, did we live up to our values as a team? And did you all live up to your values as a person? One story I'll share is I had a workshop and there was a player who didn't play much. I think she was a sophomore. And we talked about values. And one of hers was self-discipline. But then she also said later on in the Q&A, she goes, it's just hard for me to be able to really put in all the work because I don't play a lot. I said, wasn't your value self-discipline? She goes, well, yeah. I'm like, that's kind of contradictory. Like, how are you going to have self-discipline, but then in practice, you don't push yourself and have self-discipline? She goes, oh, I think she had 300 minutes this year compared to, I think, like 5 last year. And I was like, oh, you got a bunch of minutes. She goes, yeah, I did really good. I focused in on my value. So I love that. Like having that system of formality and then giving that space for the informals to be able to happen. So you can deposit that bank and withdraw it when needed. But hopefully just to keep on building on it and really invest that into their portfolio. That's a cool analogy. I'll take that. Cool. All right. That's the team.
Can I touch on something that you said?
Yeah.
So I like what you said about systems, and if the system's working, you can tinker a part of it, or if it's not working, you can tinker a part of it. And I don't blame coaches for this because coaches are busy. As an adult, as a 42-year-old, if I was coaching a team and trying to work and be a parent, very challenging. So some coaches I have sympathy for and some I don't have sympathy for. But either way, if they're winging it and something's not working, because you're winging it and you have no structure and you have no system, you don't know which part of the car, so to speak, is broken. You just know that the car ain't working. On the flip side, if you're winging it and things are working, you don't know what's working. So that's the problem. Like you need to be able, if you're going to hold the standard up to your players that they're going to be self-evaluative, self-critical, self-disciplined, they're going to have a system and a structure to their practice, you need to do the same thing so that their structure can fit within your structure. If you have no structure, there's no evaluation, and it's going to be really hard for them to find some wiggle room into the ways in which they can organize themselves in a chaotic environment. And again, I have sympathy for parents and coaches because life is challenging. People are working multiple jobs. They're working long hours. They have a lot of priorities. And incorporating some of these informal, low-hanging fruit, system structuring routines can be really helpful to give you just a basic structure for practice. I'm not saying it's got to be, the eighth wonder of the world, but if you start to create a basic structure and then find ways to build on it and scaffold on it, after years of coaching, you'll come up with something that works for you and your team culture. But if every year, and you've been a coach for a decade, you're just winging it, then you're really doing a disservice to yourself because you're causing more stress, and also to your players because you're not letting them develop in their sport or mentally and emotionally.
One question for you is, have you find that if a team takes data on the mental health of their athletes, that it is effective in a sense of this? For example, let's say confidence is a big thing for athletes. Focus is a big thing for athletes. That's probably the 2 most common ones. And anytime someone calls me about individual therapy, it's usually around confidence, it's usually around focus, and usually around failure, self-esteem have been intertwined. If a team gives a survey and says, hey, I haven't had a chance to do this yet, I don't know if you have. Hey, what is your guys' confidence? What is your guys' feeling of ability to be able to handle failure, ability to be able to handle pressure? And just collect some data and see where the team is at, and then build interventions around those things. Okay, we found that our team has a tough time handling failure, which stems from self-esteem, but can also be helped to be built within building team confidence with one another. So if you fail, it's okay. It's not really big of an ego hit because we're all a family here. So you can put in certain interventions, and then they take that survey again at some point during the year. Have you ever had a team do something like that?
So what I've done is informally with the certain questionnaires and stuff like that have given the questionnaire. So the sports psych questionnaire is broken down into 4 different categories. Other questionnaires work that way too. But what I like to do is get the team's perception of some of those performance categories and the coaches, so that they can see if they're in agreement, or if that the coach is perceiving more anxiety on the team than what the players report, or if the coach is underreporting more anxiety than the players report. Because that can be a great way where we protect the individual needs and declarations of the players in terms of how they feel, but we can talk in generalities about the mood on the team. Because there are times where the coach, if you got a team of 80 people, 50 people, some players' intricacies and nuances are going to get missed by a coach if the coach only has 1 or 2 or 3 other assistant coaches. So being able to collect that data and aggregate it, and then be able to compare and contrast, can help make the coach, oh, wow, I need to be more aware. I'm missing something. What did I need to look for? And they're not going to necessarily point out that one player or that one student athlete, but they'll just now be more aware of taking the tenor and being receptive to feedback from their players. And sometimes coaches think there's a problem on the team when the players don't necessarily think so. So being able to get those 2 rating scales can be really helpful to bring some truth to what people feel and believe other people feel as it relates to the team.
Oh, I like that. I like the coach's standpoint too. And key thing is making it anonymous, right?
Yes.
So it's not like this person feels some type of way, is making it anonymous. And I like that too, because like we mentioned, if you have a system, and even if you're in a position to where, let's say you're hearing this part of the podcast, you're like, oh, I really don't know what my system is. Okay. And I actually don't know how effective my non-system is or isn't. So doing something like that and connecting with, whether it's a mental health professional or whomever, like, can you make me a quick survey through some like key areas, and just seeing where the team is at. Now I've done it in a workshop. I've like had them do a pre-survey, did interventions, have them do a post-survey, see how they grew in certain areas. I've done that. But for a longitudinal, I haven't done that yet. But that'd be fascinating, because then the coach can see like, okay, so everything's good. Everything's working well. And my next question to ask my team is, what is working well? What are we doing that you're liking that we're doing? So I can start to be able to say, okay, I'm going to make sure I keep that. I'm going to make sure I keep this. I'm going to make sure I keep this to help build my system. So you don't have to make the system all on your own. Utilize the players that are already there and the assistant coaches that are already there to inform how the system is functioning well. If it's not functioning well, then you're going to learn like what's not functioning well about it. So that's why I like that systems piece when it comes to on the coaching level. Now, my other question is on the family level. So we did individuals, we did coaches, family. And as you know, we're therapists, so we think systems. Systems in the sense of like, you have family, you have your community, you have your team, you have your state, you have your United States, you have your global. Those are all little systems that you have. So another layer of the system is the family. Let's start with high school, middle school, maybe touch of college. For the developing athlete, what are some, I'm still sticking with the power of play here because I like that focal point. How can a parent foster that in their child? What things can they do?
So I know you and I are guilty of this, and a lot of parents are guilty of it too. When you find out that you're going to have a child, however the child comes into your life, you start fantasizing about what that child will be, whom they will be, what they will become. And if you're an athlete, the sports you'll play with them. And as much as we're therapists, we probably have had outlandish ideas of what our kids would accomplish athletically. And that can then bleed into how we treat them in real life. And the first thing that we need to acknowledge, even if our kids play the same sport that we do, is that they need to have their own individual relationship with that sport. We can usher them into it, but all we're doing as parents is facilitating. We're providing maybe the resources and the time and the energy to introduce them to soccer or introduce them to gymnastics, but it's not our gymnastics career. So it's not about us. It's always about our kids. And so keeping that at the forefront. And when the kids are younger, it's easy to incorporate play because play is encouraged. But unfortunately, as kids get older, we get into this results-based culture where play is taking a back seat to performance. Instead of performance and play sitting right next to each other, and really supporting each other in the development of our kids, both academically and athletically. So I think what parents can do with those middle school and high school kids is really figure out ways to make the sport fun again for your kid so that they don't burn out and so that they're able to play the sport longer and also be more in the micro level, be more focused and present and feeling gratitude about the sport when they're actually in it. Because again, most of our children are not going to go professional in sports, but they have the potential to have a lifelong, beautiful relationship with the sport that they're playing. So figuring out how can we use sports as an arena to teach kids social and emotional skills, psychological skills, mental skills, processing information, but also how can we build this healthy relationship so that as we pull back as parents, our kids become older and more self-sufficient and more independent, we can trust that soccer is going to take care of them. Running is going to take care of them. Tennis, golf, gymnastics will always be there for them, even when I'm not. And so being able to keep that thread of play, lightheartedness, even through sports that they're trying to perform well at, can be something that will help that relationship persevere and thrive.
Being a parent, it's every little small thing is actually a big thing.
Yes.
Maybe that for me, every small little interaction is actually a big interaction. And I know they don't notice it, but I notice it. Maybe it's just me just being a therapist. But if my daughter, it's a funny story. So we're playing, my son, he likes soccer. I think he just naturally likes sports and being athletic and hitting the balloon around. He has really good hand-eye coordination. So my daughter wants to play with us. I'm like, look, if you want to play, your brother and I, and she's 3.5. Your brother and I, we're just kicking the ball back and forth. If you want to play, you have to join in what we're doing right now. You can't make up your own game. She's very good. She's very linguistic. So she will be like, oh, let's do this. And what happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? Like, listen, kick the ball to me, try to get it past the door. Kick the ball to you, try to get it past the door. That's all we're doing right now. She goes, okay, but then if you miss, then if this happens, I'm like, listen, just right here, stay focused, and stay focused. After about the 6th time, she goes, okay, I got it. I'm like, cool. And then she loses. She doesn't beat me. She loses. I'm like, I'm making her lose on purpose. See what she does. Little moment, big impact. She goes to my wife. I was like, all right, let's see what my wife does. Ashley, don't mess this up. See what she does. And she goes, yeah, you're going to lose sometimes. And she comes back to me and she goes, Daddy, I lost. I was like, yes, you did. And that happens. And that's okay. I want to win. What do you have to do? I don't know, like practice to get better. It's okay. If you lose, just come back in and you play again. And she goes, all right, Daddy, let's play again. I'm like, all right, cool. I didn't mess it up. So it's like every little tiny moment is a big moment. So for parents, think about how, like you mentioned, it's long-term. What values do you want your child to gain out of sports? And again, when we talk about confidence, I think outcome confidence can be dangerous. And I think performance confidence can be dangerous because it fluctuates all the time. You play someone good, you're probably gonna lose. If someone's taller than you, or you're like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna win or not, then you start playing, then you don't have focus on what the present is. It causes a whole host of issues. But as a parent, if you're pushing, did you win? As a parent, if you're pushing, how did you perform? That ends up having that kid come into outcome and performance confidence. So when I'm sitting one-on-one with them, I'm trying to unwind that because that's what ends up making them tight and making them have focus on the past and have focus on the future. So I think as a parent, really thinking about what do I want my kid to get out of sports? Again, I think everything goes back to values. What values do I have as a individual parent? What values does our family have? And how am I helping my child to instill these values? And they're usually going to be some positive, good values that's going to help them out in the real world, in the outside world, outside of your house, and the rest of the systems of the world. So in every little interaction, in the car when they come in, before they go off to school, before they go off to the practice, when they tell you about their game, how do you want to structure that conversation? Leave it open-ended. Tell me about the game. Tell me about practice. What did you like? How did you have fun? How did you enjoy yourself? What are some things you didn't do well at? Okay, what are some things you did better at? Try and instill that, hey, if you want to get better at something, you just continue to practice it. It's going to fail. It's going to happen. But that's how you know you made mistakes. And then you continue to practice it. Have fun. Who did you have fun with? Who do you like on the team? Who do you bond with? those type of conversations instill those power of play, instills a confidence, instills having perseverance. And then one thing I think is great to bring up too is just how happiness is built. Talked about it already, but gratitude is probably the number one correlation to happiness. How are you showing gratitude in those conversations? How are you instilling that that sport is still a hobby? It can be a professional sport, or it could be a D1 sport, or D2 sport, or D3, or varsity, or JV, but it's still a hobby. How do you still enjoy it? If you're not enjoying it, let's find out how we enjoy it some more. Maybe we just got to go play in the backyard instead of having a structured sports team every single time we play. It doesn't have to. We all don't have to have jerseys on. We can just do some backyard running around, and that can be fun. We don't do that enough anymore. Everything is a team. You can just run around. So, like, as a parent, how can you instill those conversations? And I guess, what is your system as a parent to having those conversations? Is it dinner table? Is it a car ride before you get the door? Is it a text that you send to your child before they go off to practice? What system do you have as a parent to make sure you're instilling those things? That's what I think of with parents, and parents play a big role.
It makes me think of two things, right? There's one being intent and impact, right? So yesterday I was at, Friday, I was at the MIAA Respect and Civility Conference, so Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association. And one of the presenters did a power of words presentation. And this idea of if you say something to somebody, you had your intent, it was just a joke, it wasn't serious, but the impact could be different than your intent. So the challenging thing with being parent is you have to think of both all the time. What's the intent of the interaction that I'm having right now? What's the impact of the interaction that I'm having right now? I might want to say something to my kid who will not go to bed and it's 10:30 at night, but what's the impact that I want to have in this moment? So this idea of you want to act on your commitments, not your feelings. A lot of parents act on their feelings and understand their commitments. You want to act on your commitments and understand your feelings, because we love our children, but they can still bring up some really challenging feelings, frustration, anger, anxiety, nervousness, shame. But if I lean into those feelings and act on those feelings, then I'm not acting on my commitment of being a stable father, a reliable emotional resource, the life jacket when the waves are getting tough. So that extra emotional energy is exhausting. And that's why parents need a lot of support. The other thing, when I think about praising our son, I really try to focus on effort and energy. Like, I loved your enthusiasm when you were drawing that picture. If I focus on the beauty of the picture, that's not going to allow him to take risks. Some of them pictures are going to need to be ugly so he can learn certain things, or some of the games he's going to need to lose so he can get better. But when he enters something and attacks something with energy and enthusiasm and great effort, I'll praise that till the cows come home, because that's what I want him to do in everything. Or, you're a really compassionate teammate or work partner when you're building that thing that you love to build. That was really great how you took everybody's opinion before you started building. That was fantastic. So what you praise is what the child will then interpret as the thing that is valued or rewarded in the household, in the family system, in the family culture. So for us, it's effort, it's enthusiasm, definitely humor, right? And it's being a good citizen, a good community member. So like making sure that people are heard, people are protected, and people are appreciated.
That first step is, what are your values as a family? If you do not know, same thing with the coaches, same thing, you're winging it. You don't know what's working, what's not working. You're just going off of emotion. And once you have what your value set is, and same, ours is pretty similar, which is, effort, being kind. It's kind of like the only two she's got to worry about right now is putting an effort towards something and being kind. Now she's learning her sounds right now. And so she can remember stuff very well, which I'm like, all right, cool, you'll be cool. My parents are like, she's not reading yet. I'm like, relax. Like, you read when you were 3. I'm like, relax. I have no worries. Like, she'll be fine. But as she's reading it and getting better, I'm trying to make sure I'm saying to her, she's like, oh, Daddy, I got this word. I'm like, oh, you got that word? That's great. How do you feel? I feel proud. And why did you learn that word? Well, because I practice. I'm like, yes, I'm going to keep on practicing and keep on getting better. So she's starting to understand, the more I practice, better I get. And I'm like, cool. You can get that down. It's perseverance. The more you do something, the better you get. Rather than, oh man, you got that word yesterday, but not today. Like, come on, you know that word. You know
Right.
what R is. R is in your name. You have two of them. You know what I mean? And like, what emotions does that bring up? And you're not going to be right every time. But if you know how your compass is built and what you're looking for and what star you're aiming for, you know how to get there. But if you don't know what your goal is, you're going to be lost on the journey the whole time.
And I'm going to be a pundit. I'm going to be a pundit on TV and just throw out a random stat that I'm making up in my own head, but I'm curious to hear what you think about it. I would venture to say about 75% of things, so 3 out of 4, are achievable with enough practice, right? Like there's certain physical things I'll never be able to do. And that's in that 25% category. But the vast majority of things that I'm going to encounter, be interested in, motivated to do are achievable to some degree. I might not be the best at it, but I'm going to be better at it than I was without practice, are achievable with practice. And it might mean practicing every day for 5 hours. It might mean, locking myself in a room and really writing that book or making that art or whatever it is. But when you commit the time and energy to something and you have people who support you and back you and give you the emotional nourishment, the physical nourishment to get it done, I'd probably say 75% of the things you could get statistically significantly better at with practice. And that practice comes from willpower. And we talked a lot about confidence tonight. And my whole thing is, like some other people, this idea of, I don't necessarily want my son to be confident as the, top of the pyramid thing. I want him to have willpower. So even if he's not confident and even if he's not motivated, he still has the systems and the energy, the enthusiasm to get things done. So you talked to your daughter when she was learning how to spell and sound things out. How did you do it? You practice, right? So practice is part of her systems that allows her the willpower to do it. So the same thing I do with my son is I'll ask him, so tell me how you figured that out. What was your thought process in learning certain things? Because he's working on his spelling and everything like that. But he loves Zelda. So he can tell you everything in Minecraft and Zelda, even though he can't spell some of those challenging words. And so I'll always ask him, like, how did you figure out what that thing was if you struggle spelling it at times? And so he has systems to figure out words he doesn't understand. Sometimes the system is, I'm going to ask mama. Sometimes the system is, I'm going to watch a video and they're going to say the name of the thing in the video. And now I connect that color and that shape and that texture to the word they said in the video. So being able to get them excited and motivated about the skills they're using in the systems that at 3 or at 7.5, they're already building to solve problems in their world that are important to them, that's going to encourage them to use that same type of thinking and brain power as they get older and there are bigger, more complex, more challenging problems to solve.
Yeah, I think 3 things. 1, nice job getting your kids involved into Zelda. Nice. Yes. Nicely done. Yeah. My kids just started watching Super Mario Brothers, and so they're like, "Oh, I love Super Mario Brothers." And so Lorraine's like, "I like Princess." Actually, her favorite character is Donkey Kong. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I thought it might have been like Princess Peach or Mario, but like Donkey Kong, cool. But I think that's 3 things. 1, and working inside the school system, this is an honest thing, is most kids, when it comes to behavior stuff, it's not a neurological thing. It's not you were born with that behavior. Most of the time, 90% of the time, unless it's a specific diagnosis of autism or another type of neurodiagnosis, it's parents. How parent or whoever raised guardian. It's usually nurture. That kid is the way that they are because of how they were nurtured. So if as a parent, if you don't like something about your child, what did you do to get them to that point? It's more than likely your fault. And that means for me too. So if something in my daughter reacts a certain way, how did I encourage that? Every day at 2 a.m., I see her little afro bouncing inside. She comes into our room to come sleep into our room every night at 2 or 3 a.m. How is that my fault in what I'm doing? You know, actually, it's supposed to be my wife's fault. She's the one who lets, you know what I mean? But it's my fault. It's nurtured. I did that. So as a parent, the first thing is, what am I doing to nurture this behavior or mindset and mentality of my child that I don't think is most beneficial for them? 1, as a human being to as an athlete? What changes do I need to make in my thought process, in my conversations, and how I act? Second thing I don't like, do as I say, not as I do. Who made that up? They see what you do. Like if anyone says that, do as I say, not as I do, like you're the problem.
Run.
Your children
Run.
are going to your children are going to act how you do. They want to see what you do. Do as you do. So if you're not acting a way to where you want your child to act, you got to fix that first for yourself. And that motivation could be because I want my child to be able to emulate what I do, my values and how I act as a person.
Right.
Now, for what that foundation said, that basis of, that 75% number you threw out, I would say, yeah. I'll say, yeah. Based on the research, I always forget his name. I feel like his name is Erickson, but it's definitely not. The guy who did the 10,000 hours rule, which isn't really 10,000 hours because everyone misinterpreted his research. But his whole premise was the more practice you put in, the better you get. And then other people did research on it too. It was like, oh, no matter what sport you play, whoever's putting the most hours is usually whomever is best at that sport.
Right.
Then you hit some type of plateau because eventually everyone's good. In tennis, everyone can hit a forehand, everyone can hit a backhand, everyone can hit a slice. Djokovic is a wall, Sinner is Djokovic 2.0. Everyone kind of hits this level of plateau, especially with, I would say even more so with the information age, with the internet. Everyone can learn top level drills without having to have a top level coach. Everyone has a certain set of information where they can get really, really great information for how they can improve as a player. So everyone's physical level has risen. And also everyone's in all these like mystical, magical programs. So first thing is understanding if I want to get better at something, I have to put in more hours of practice. Yes, there's a diminishing returns after about 3 or 4 hours. But if I want to get better, I put in more hours. It's very simplistic. And if you started playing at age 10, and these kids started playing at age 5, they have way more hours than you do. You can't do anything about it. It is what it is. It's totally fine. All you know is like, all right, the best I can do is just continue putting in more hours, and I'm going to eventually get better. If you understand that, then like you mentioned, you're going to get very close to achieving whatever you want to achieve. You might not get there, but you're going to get very close along the way. And the only way you can do that is by putting in hours. It's nothing else. There's no other cheat codes. Put in hours. And the hours that you put in have to be, and something else I want to touch on too. Naive practice I want to touch on. But the hours that you put in should be purposeful and deliberate. Trying to be able to improve specific skills that will eventually improve your overall performance in whatever realm you are. If you are a quarterback, you might be watching film, not necessarily doing anything physical to understand defenses. So when you see them, you understand, all right, if I see this formation, there's a lot of disguises nowadays, I'm more likely going to be able to have this open on the field. More likely to be able to have this open on the field. More than likely, this defender's coming. If they're in this situation, it'll be very hard for them to get over here. So this should be pretty good. Only way I get that is I had to put in hours to study that and then do reps over and over and over again so I can see that that's how it functions.
When you were talking about everybody reaching that physical plateau, I think that's the selling point really for sports clinicians, sports psychologists, sports social workers, because if you do that mental piece, you're now doing the novel thing that the other athletes in your system or on your team or in your league aren't doing. So think about the exponential growth that your brain can have in your emotions and your intellect and your processing speed versus your physical body. I'm only going to be able to jump so high. I'm only going to be able to run so fast. I'm only going to be able to get so good with my lacrosse shot or my marathon time. But my brain power is literally exponential. It's the best supercomputer that the world has ever created. So the ability for me to rely upon something that other people have turned the other cheek to and are avoiding and are miscategorizing and are thinking it's, snake oil salesman type stuff allows me to have an advantage that other people haven't caught up to yet. And so if you're an early adopter of mental skills training, working with a sports clinician, taking care of your mental health while everybody else is drinking too much on the weekend, partying too much the night before their game, getting into bad life decisions, which then impact their availability on the field, the court, the ice, of course you're going to be in a position to be successful. And like you said, that training will get you so far. And then sometimes luck happens, opportunity happens. And that gives you that, it's like the spaceship, because it's an extra booster to get you to where you need to go. This factor that you couldn't plan for, that you never considered, but you hoped would happen. Your opportunity to be in the Olympics, the opportunity to make that team, to have a good performance at the combine, or to get drafted. Now that luck that you couldn't account for is now adding like 2x, 5x, 10x to all that training, all that preparation that you had. But that luck will be there. But if you don't meet it with preparation, then you're not going to be able to capitalize on it. And mental training, mental skills, and mental health really help you get you there.
Yes. Thank you for luck. I want to talk about luck because there's an equation for luck. I don't get a chance to talk about it often. You brought it up, so I'm glad you did. 3 things. One is like you mentioned, and thank you for catching me, because that's what I was trying to allude to. Once you reach that physical peak, after that is the mental game. That's a differential. Everyone you hit the physical peak, and then you have genetics. Some people are just naturally tall. Some people have longer arms. Nothing you can do about that. But the part that you can control is that mental piece. If they're not focused, then you're focused. You can react faster than they can. If they lose confidence, and that confidence usually impacts their focus, and you have confidence, yours is more stable, then you can play better than they can. If they can't handle pressure and they keep on double faulting, that gives you free points. If you can handle pressure because you embrace things and have that power of joy and you embrace it, and you take a deep breath and you understand mindfulness, and you understand how to ground yourself to bring you back to the present, then you understand, okay, for focus, next play, what am I focusing on? Specifically, their hip movements as a DB or as a defender in basketball, or for most defensive positions. That's my focal area. Cool, I'm locked in. It doesn't matter that there's a minute left. It doesn't matter that I'm down. All I know, based on my practice, is when I focus on the hip movements, that is the best chance I have at playing tight defense. That is all I know, and that is all I need to know. Doesn't matter what my emotions are. Boom, boom, boom. Ball doesn't come my way. Pass gets deflected. Shot gets missed, whatever. Now we're winning. That mental component is what is going to give and provide that competitive edge. One thing I also want to mention, I'll touch on luck first, and then I want to mention naive practice and why that's important. Because then it becomes this little conflicting bit of, I'll get to that in a second. Luck, there's an equation for luck, and maybe I kind of twisted it a little bit, but there's one research article I read. There's just a couple ones. Like, does luck exist? And how they phrase luck is in this equation of merit times luck equals level of impact. If you get lucky, and I actually did this with like looking at songs and whatnot, but I think it's applicable to everything. You have these opportunities that you cannot control for, that just simply happened. They're luck. How you actually take advantage of luck is first being open to opportunities, open to new experiences, open to new ideas. Individuals that have those 3 characteristics or mind frames are more open to luck and actually achieve more luck. But the other part, which you mentioned, is you have to have the merit. If you play on a team for varsity, and just so happens a D1 coach comes in one day for practice because they just happen to be in the area and like, no, I'll just stop by this practice. You have not put in the work. Let's say you're a really, really, really good player, but you suck at zone defense. You don't train zone defense. And just so happens today, you're running zone. And you're like, oh crap, that coach is there. Oh, I'm nasty at lockdown, man, but I can't do zone because you haven't put in that work. You say, I hate it, so I'm not going to do it. You miss out on that opportunity. But the athlete that understands your merit is going to allow you to be able to take advantage of luck when it comes up. Then you can take advantage of opportunity. Then you have a high impact. Then the coach says, oh, I wasn't even looking at you, but you play someone very well. I'm going to come back again. Can you play man? I'm even better at man. Can you do this? Oh, I'm better at shooting. I'm better at this. I'm better at that. And when you have that merit, then the coach says, actually, you know what? I'm going to keep my eye on you. What year are you? Sophomore? Cool. And people say, oh, you got so lucky a coach stopped by. I wouldn't be in that position if I didn't have the merit. You know, and it doesn't necessarily just mean sports. It could be any type of profession. You know, this conversation is based on luck. We saw some of our content. We connected. I was like, yeah, let's jump on a podcast together. Let's have this conversation. It was luck that we connected. absolutely random algorithm. Maybe not, because you're a sports therapist, I'm a sports therapist, but it's luck that you happen to be on at some time, that I posted something, and vice versa, that you posted something that I happen to be on, and we connected. If one of us didn't take advantage of the opportunity, if we didn't take advantage of luck, this conversation wouldn't happen. And then I think this is a high level impact conversation, because on all three levels, families, coaches, individuals can take advantage of it. We won't be able to create that high impact. And if we both didn't do the work, this conversation wouldn't be as fruitful. So I think if athletes understand that that's how luck works, you have to have the merit. Otherwise, you become a one-hit wonder. Maybe you have a good practice, but then you get on that practice field and you can't play consistently. You're a one-hit wonder. Another thing I want to mention too is, this is important. A lot of this podcast we talked about, especially towards like the latter half, putting in the hours. The more hours you put in, the better you get. Perseverance, having grit. And if that gets pushed too hard, and this is another reason why the power of play is so critical, and why I really like that you started the book with the power of play, is teaching people how to be able to sustain that battery. Because if you're an athlete and you go 1,000 miles per hour in practice, 1,000 miles per hour with academics, 1,000 miles per hour with your social relationships and everything else like that, your friendships, putting all this work towards something, you can get burnt out very easily. Especially that chapter about burnout, you get burnt out very easily because you have a battery. No one can make their battery grow bigger. You can only make your battery drain slower. It's the only thing you can do. As an athlete, you naturally have a battery that drains slower because you self-regulate all day long. You build self-regulation through everything. You have to always be locked in. So your battery already drains slower. You had that bonus. But if you don't recharge that battery, you're going to go to bed on 20% and wake up at 50%, especially if you only get 5 hours of sleep, 6 hours of sleep. And then now you're only operating at 50%. In the mental game wise, you can even access the confidence and the focus because your brain is only at half power. You're drained by time halftime comes, and coffee can't save you. So if you have the power of play and you integrate that, and if teams integrate that, you can still be playing the sport, but being able to sustain some of that battery. I saw a little video of tennis players. It was like a little tiny little circle, and they were running around it and just playing tennis off of it. It's kind of like that game that slap the squash ball game. You hit it on the net. I forgot the name of it. It's kind of like that. It's very similar, but they're just playing with their tennis rackets, the ball off the table, and they're just having fun. You can do that type of game, and that just helps the people to sustain that battery. And if they're having joy and they're having fun and they're not thinking so heavily and they're not running on 1,000% power, it helps to sustain that battery and prevent burnout. So, I had fun in tennis today. It was a really fun thing. I had fun in football today. I had fun in baseball today. I had fun in basketball today because we did these drills that were just joyful games, and it helped to sustain my level of burnout. So having and incorporating power of play also helps with burnout.
I think play is just this opportunity that we get. Like, why does everything have to be so serious? And we live in a world where there's a lot going on, right? There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of vicarious trauma for us as clinicians, for us as parents. There's a lot of worry. There's a lot of anxiety about the world that our kids will inherit. So this opportunity to, in the midst of stressful moments in our lives, inject play, forcibly inject play, stop what you're doing and play, so that we can have something that's a little bit of a, if anything, even slightly a palate cleanser for some of the things going on, and really to remind people that there's more to life to live than winning and some of the challenges and stressors that they see on a daily basis. And that we really can have these moments of levity and joy, and that no one or no thing can steal our joy.
What would you say the power of play is? Would you say that is the competitive edge? Or would you say that is the equalizer? Like, how would you, like in a couple words, how would you summarize how impactful the power of play is?
I think the power of play for me and for Kim, I think, is just the basic element of sports. You are playing a game, and we've lost sight of that. And you can make millions of dollars doing it. You can become famous. You can have 5.2 million followers. It doesn't matter. You are playing a game. And the reason why you got into that game in the first place was because it was fun and brought you some type of gratitude and intrinsic joy. And for most of us, it will never be a profession for us, but it will always be something that has the opportunity to bring us joy and the ability to do something, to build something, to challenge yourself with other people who have similar goals. There's nothing quite like it. And we can fail at sports, but the world isn't over when we fail at sports. If I fail as a parent, you fail as a parent. If I fail in my marriage, you fail in your marriage. That would be devastating. Mm-hmm. But I can lose a game. I can lose a state championship. I can lose a conference championship, and I can be okay at the end of the day. Might take some time, might take some therapy, but I can be okay. So to have something that can be so serious, but not be world ending is important for us, because a lot of the things that we do as we age have some pretty heavy stakes to them if we fail at them. So we can find some refuge in sports and succeed and feel really great about it, but also feel whatever we need to feel and come back stronger, ready to attack the rest of the day.
I should definitely read your book, because we talk for an hour on one chapter. On a single chapter was an entire hour. That's why I was like, I circled that. I was like, oh, this is it. The single chapter. And that's why, because it's the you made it, you and Kim made it chapter 1 for a reason, for the foundation of it. And I think I loved how you interwoven everything about the power and play and how it is that core thing. Because for me, therapy is like an onion. Mm-hmm. Go through layers. Eventually you get to the core of it. And then if you have a strong core, those layers, I don't have a reverse analogy, but then you're all right. You got to have a strong core for that.
No, I appreciate you having me. When Kim and I wrote the book, we felt while we were writing it that we had something, right? It was cathartic for us, because we talked about our own sports experiences. We were so appreciative and thankful that some of the clients we worked with allowed us, with their permission, to include some of their stories, de-identified, of course. And we took stories from pop culture as well. But it's interesting, because the people's favorite chapter is the play chapter, because I think it's almost like this shock of like, oh, right, this is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be this challenge, this playful challenge that I'm incorporating into my life that I actually want to do. Nobody's forcing me to play sports. There's no incentive beyond, for a lot of us, the fact that we enjoy it and we love it and we want to be challenged by it. And so the fact that you got that out of it just warms my heart. I'm sure it warms Kim's heart. And now that the book is out, we are really excited to see how people are going to receive it and accept it. And also the cool part is, everybody who reads it is going to have some type of gain, hopefully, in their sports performance. And so this idea that we can help people fall deeper in love with their sport and with themselves with this book is something that we'll be forever grateful for.
Yeah, and I love the way that you structured it as well. You know, part of my role as a district social worker is building professional developments for the 220 social workers in Boston Public Schools.
Oh, wow.
If we don't give them something tangible, they'll eat you alive. Then they eat me alive. And they're like, hey, you guys didn't create something where we can walk away with something. Presentation sucked. So reading your book, I was like, oh, social workers will love this, because every single chapter is story to really bring you in depth with it, the psychoeducation around it, and then the specific strategies and how you implement that specific topic. So it's very clear, very easy way to be able to be structured if someone really feels that, oh, you know, when it comes to making mistakes, I really struggle with that. I can go back to that specific chapter and know in that specific chapter, I'm going to get recycle ed, specific strategies, see if I'm implementing them or not. We didn't talk about goals and sub goals, but if you have a goal of being able to be handling failure better, you can take exactly what you have in the book and make that your sub goals for your intervention and how you're going to be able to better handle failure. It's very concrete. And that's one thing I really, really love about the books. I love the way you guys structured it. I loved all the information in it. I love all the stories in it. And I love just you guys got right to the point with everything, which I think is fascinating. So 10 out of 10 in my book. 10 out of 10. I don't read a lot of books. I read a lot of research articles. I don't read a lot of books. Yours is very good. Very good.
Appreciate it. We tried to make a book that was for people who were either short on time or, like me, short on attention. We recognize you're going to practice for many hours a week. You might have kids, you might have therapy, you might have tutoring, academics, whatever. And so we wanted to give you something that you could either read by section. Oh, I want to work on my play or unstructured goals or burnout, or I just had an injury, I'm going to read that chapter. Or you could read it all the way through. So to make it a flexible process and people can approach it the different way that they want to. But also, if you're interested, this can be a jumping off point to start reading other books, listening to other podcasts like yours, doing research articles and examining the science behind sports psychology to really just dive in deeper and get a different understanding of what might have been something you knew from the outside, but now you're getting more knowledgeable and you're getting more understanding.
Mm, I love that. I think that puts a cap on the conversation. Let's see, have any questions for me? Anything that I missed? But I think that right there is the essence of the power of play.